my name is Simon Hunter and I run Simon Says Dance, a dance school based in Edinburgh. I decided with my time in lockdown to be a little bit more creative and start a new project called Simon Talks Dance. I'm going to be interviewing several different males from different parts of the industry, including performers, choreographers, students and teachers. I want to know how they succeeded in this industry and what obstacles they had to overcome. In a world where there's still so much stigma attached to this subject, I want to delve into this idea of negativity and make the conversation a much more positive one. I want to do this on a local and interactive platform, and I can't wait to do these interviews for you. Today, I was lucky enough to be talking to Alex Lodge. He is a musical theatre performer. He's performed internationally. He's done UK tours and the West End, including shows like Book of Mormon, Titanic, and Saturday Night Fever. He studied Arts Ed in London, and he was currently, depending on lockdown, doing the Bat Out of Hell musical tour, which is currently on hold. So let's find out a little bit more information about Alex today. Hey, how are you?
Hey man, I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Are you surviving the lockdown?
No, I'm back in my mum's house because I was meant to be going away on tour, and like 2 days before we were meant to fly out to America, they announced the travel ban from the UK to the States. So I had to get in my car and drive to my mum's house, and I'm currently in my mum's spare room, waiting for it all to get lifted. So, but I'm doing all right. I'm doing good. It could be worse. It could be much worse.
You are right. And I also think we've got to look at the positives, because loads of positives are coming out of this time of actually giving yourself some time, because we're constantly like on the go. So it's quite nice to actually take a time and chill out for a bit.
And realize like what in your life is essential and what isn't. Like, you know, how just taking a step back and to breathe. I've done a lot of writing. I've done a lot of actually relaxing. I had some injuries that were really kind of starting to flare up a little bit again. Actually having the time to let your body completely recover has felt amazing, that you just don't have, because if you're not on a job, then you've got a side hustle where you're trying to get money to pay the rent. So you're constantly on the go. And to have something where you literally have a reason to stop, sit down and let your body recover. I feel amazing. I feel great.
Exactly. We'll all be like ready to go as soon as this is lifted, won't we?
Rock and roll, man.
Exactly. So what I want to start with is, obviously you were fully in rehearsals, you had a show going, and it was you were literally ready to rumble, and then this has all happened. So what's kind of happening with that job now? Have you been told kind of what's happening, or is it just all on pause?
So it's kind of all on hold, because we're meant to start in America, then go to Australia, then start in the UK in September, go through to June in the UK, and then they've got some other dates planned for it after that. And so America's had to be completely postponed. Australia's had to be completely postponed. So now we're just waiting to see what happens over here until September. If we can start in September, we'll start in September. Yeah. If not, then we'll see what happens then. You know, it's such an uncertain time for everyone, and no one really knows what is or isn't going to happen. I mean, the producers have been absolutely amazing. They've really looked after everyone, and made like as soon as they get information, we get given the information at the same time. So I think everyone is just, you know, sitting there with fingers crossed that everyone can stay healthy, stay safe, and be ready to go whenever that might be. So we're going fingers crossed September, but if not, you know, we're under contract until at least June of next year. Yeah. So the show will happen at some point. It's just when. I think everyone's just waiting. So
theatre's been one of the kind of the last things on the list that they're going to be opening as a place which holds people. It's going to be a longer wait than some of these things, but hopefully gradually we'll all get back to normal, and it will.
Yeah. No, and whatever kind of a new normal is, you know, I don't think it'll ever go back to exactly how it was before. Yeah. But yeah, I think whilst social distancing is a thing, theatres just won't be able to open. You know, you've got these old, often quite small buildings where they've crammed in 1,000 or 2,000 seats. There's no way you can't not be near people. And I think a lot of people have maybe thought about audiences and how we can socially distance an audience. But, you know, there's 60 people backstage that make a show happen, between actors and performers on stage to the orchestra down in the pit. If you've got 16 people in a space that's maybe 16 foot wide, they can't socially distance. You've got dressers, you've got wiggies, you've got sound technicians, all backstage making the show happen in a really small area. So there's no way anyone can socially distance. So whilst that's the thing that we have to do to keep us all safe, theatre is one that's really, really hard to reopen. But it will happen. It's one of those, you've got to stay positive. It will happen eventually. We just got to wait for it to get there.
Yeah, you're right. And also, there's so many people in this industry that are in the same boat. So we all kind of have to just support each other.
Everyone's in the same boat. Yeah. And I think there's often times where, I was talking to a mate about this yesterday, if you're in a job or whether you're out of a job, you constantly feel like you're missing out on something. Say if you're in a long running contract, they think, oh, if I wasn't in this contract, I could audition for that, or that's coming up, I'd love to go in for that. So you feel like that you're missing out on something. Whereas if you're not on a contract, you say that, oh, I wish I could be in that. If I was in that show, or I was doing that job, I'd be having this, I'd be having that. So again, you feel like you're missing out on something. So as performers, we kind of have this innate thing within us to constantly feel like we're missing out on something. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, that's completely gone because there's nothing to be missing out on at the moment. So it's kind of really nice to watch a lot of performer friends just, again, chill out a bit and take the foot off the gas, take the pressure off yourself. Because right now, there is no work. There's nothing anyone can do apart from just wait.
You're right.
And use this time for hopefully self-improvement.
And I feel like as well, a lot of people have done this, especially like from such a young age. So they're constantly, that's their main focus in life. So to stop and put the brakes on it, it's a bit like, whoa. So it's quite...
I'm exactly like that. Like it's all I know. Yeah. So what do I do now? I'm not doing that at the moment. I sit and play the PlayStation a lot is what I do. Really.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to kind of the start for you. And I'd kind of like to know how you even got into the performing industry in the first place. So kind of at what age and how you kind of first stumbled upon it.
So I kind of really started a stagecoach when I was about, it must have been about 6 or 7. Okay. And there was a really lovely drama teacher there that kind of pulled my mum aside one day and said, you know, he's really got some talent. Do you think it's something he'd like to do? And of course, ever since I was a kid, all I ever wanted to do was be a clown and join the circus. That was literally my lifetime ambition, was to go and join the circus. And so she didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but knew that I wanted to perform in some way. And this drama teacher said, well, you know, one thing that will really help him is dancing. As a boy, you've got to be able to dance. You know, he can sing and he can act and he's funny and all of these things. But dancing is something that if you start him now, it set him in really good stead. So my mum looked up a local dance school, literally just rung up and said, hello, this is my son, can he come along? And I was probably about 11 or 12 by that point. And I went along to a jazz class on a Saturday afternoon and didn't look back from there. And I just fell in love with it. And I was with Jo Haylock, the school. I was with Jo until I was 18. So I was with her about 6 years before I went off to college to London. And that was kind of the start of my trajectory, hopefully going like this rather than like this.
Exactly. And then when you first started, was there other boys in the classes, or were you kind of one of the only boys, or how did that kind of work?
There was, I was quite lucky at my dance school because of my age group I was the only lad. But just a few years before me, there was a guy called Dan Burton that went to my dance school, and he's like gone on, done loads now in West End and TV, and he's been nominated for an Olivier and things like that. And he was kind of someone for me to look up to, that had gone to the exact same dance school, done the exact same classes in the exact same little church hall that we were in, just a few years before I was doing it. And Dan would come back when I used to do dance festivals and things like that. Cringe! But like he would come and, you know, like support there whenever he could, and would, my first ever song and dance was the Pharaoh song, the Song of the Kings from Joseph. And that was Dan's first song and dance as well. So I had his old costume when I must have been about 12, trying to give it Elvis and all that. So I kind of had someone to look up to and kind of idolize, really. But in the actual classes themselves, I was the only boy. But then a few years younger than me, they start to have a few more boys like come through. And now, when I go back to teach there now, there's so many lads. It's amazing. It's amazing to see, like, looking back, you know, nearly 14, 15 years since I was there, the growth of it, and the growth of male dance, and how much it's so much supported from me from a younger age now. It's great. It's really great.
Yeah, I always say that it wasn't as kind of noticed. Like, there wasn't very many dance schools where boys were able to go when we were younger. So I kind of feel like there's just more opportunities, and I feel like it's just things like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent has kind of made it a little bit more acceptable. So there is more boys wanting to kind of step into this. And I think things like even like Fortnite, TikTok, it is allowing kids to kind of dance and see it from a different kind of point of view.
Sure. And like, you know, the more you're exposed to it and the more you see it, the more you feel seen. And especially like even things like, you know, look at George Sampson, Britain's Got Talent, people like Justin Timberlake. Like, you know, sometimes people would think male dance was specifically ballet and men in tights and you know, just back to your Nureyev, and then you'd move on to your things like your Gene Kelly and your Singing in the Rain, which, and so there's kind of classics to look to, but they're all maybe from a time gone by, whereas now it's everywhere, and it's not just, you know, kind of classical dancing or 1920s period dancing. You've got everything all over the place.
Everywhere.
It's great.
Yeah, and I think
social media, I need to go and watch some of his videos.
And I think social media does make that so much more acceptable for kids now, because they see it every day they follow all these dancers, and I think it's a great thing for inspiration. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, there is negatives of social media, but there's a lot of positives from it as well. So I think it's great. Now, one thing I wanted to go back to was when you had kind of finished your dance in your local dance school, and you were then taking the big step to go and audition down in London for Ssd. What kind of made you point towards that school? Why was it specifically Ssd that you were like, that's the one?
Do you know what? This is probably not a great story to tell kids in school, but my first place that I auditioned for was for Lane Theatre Art. And because that's where Dan went, who I idolised, looked up to. He went to Lane. I was like, great, I'm going to be like Dan. I'll audition for Lane. So I auditioned for Lane, and luckily got in and was offered a scholarship. I couldn't believe my luck. So I was like, great, happy days, I'm sold, I'm off, cheers. And this happened quite early in the year for me, of the school year. Worked in September to July in England. I know it's different in Scotland. And this happened for me in about the October. So around October, I was like, well, great, I know that this time next year I'm off. So I kind of then stopped caring about anything academic at school, apart from one Tuesday afternoon I had double history, and an essay was due in that I hadn't written. I just hadn't done it, and it just so happened that my Arts Ed audition came through on that day. And I was like, well, I'm going to Lane, so it doesn't matter. Like, I don't need to spend the money and go to London. But I was like, do you know what? Getting a train to London saying, oh, I've got an audition, it's like a university open day for me, I have to go, I can't miss it, gets me out of doing this history essay that I hadn't done. So to this day, that is pretty much the only reason I still went along to my Arts Ed audition. And I thought I was going to go, get cut, probably just hang around in London for a bit, and then just get the train back at about 6 o'clock, because they do at Arts Ed, they do a morning session, then there's a cut, and then if you get recalled, you stay for the afternoon session. And I was like, yeah, fine, I'll go down, do the morning session. If there's a matinee on, might try and catch that. And then go home again, you know, me being 17 and feeling all independent. And then my plan was scuppered because I got through to the afternoon. I was like, oh, great. But it was one of those moments where I had nothing riding on it that day. Like, not like I didn't care about the audition. You always want to make a good impression, but I didn't need to get in my head, because I already knew that I wanted to go somewhere else. So I walked in kind of feeling quite relaxed, but I walked in and instantly got a vibe of, this is where I want to be. I couldn't tell you what it was. I guess it's like if you go shopping for a pair of jeans and you'll try on a million different pairs, and eventually you just put on one and you go, that's the pair of jeans. it was like that. And I was like, this is where I want to be. And as the day went on, and as I got further down the audition day, I was like, I want to come here. I really want to come here. And then again, luckily I got in. And then I kind of didn't look back from there. I was like, actually, you know what, that felt like more me as a place than when I auditioned at Lane. So to this day, it's only because I didn't write a history essay and I was trying to skive out of class that I actually went and auditioned to Ssd. It's amazing how these tiny little things can change the entire course of your life. Like the smallest thing. Because if not, I would have had history. I think it was Mr. Carpenter. No, it was Mr. Britton teaching me that. I'm Mr. Britton, who would have given me detention and told me I was a naughty boy for not doing my essay.
And it just shows you, like you say, things happen for a reason. You were meant to go. That was where you were meant to go, and it all kind of came into place. And when you obviously went from studying as being one of the only boys in your dance school in your class to then going down there where there's hundreds of boys who can all do similar to you, what was that experience like for you?
It was, you know what, our year, I think my year at college had 63 in it.
Wow.
So we were quite a big year. But there were more boys in the year than there were girls.
Wow. Okay.
And I think I might be quoting wrong numbers, but there was something like 33 boys in our year and I think 30 girls. And the most amazing thing being like a straight lad who's a male dancer doing performing arts was, of the 33 boys, I think 5 of them were gay and the other 28 were straight lads. And so all of a sudden being surrounded by people that were your age, into the same stuff as you, but you could also sit and talk about the football, go to the pub and have a pint, but also be in ballet class the next day, standing at the bar doing pliés. And that was the norm. It wasn't the exception to the rule. That was the norm. It was kind of quite life affirming. And like every Monday and Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., 8 till 10, you'd have boys ballet with David, who was the head of dance. And you'd come in, whether you'd been dancing since you were 4 or whether you'd never set foot in a dance studio in your life, all the boys were in one room together, wearing exactly the same thing, doing exactly the same pliés and tondus and port de bras, because it took everyone back to exactly the same starting point. And the camaraderie felt in like a 30 lads all doing ballet together, having a proper laugh doing it. Was some of my fondest memories of college were those first year ballet classes with the boys. David Greenall, not that he'll ever see this, but David Greenall, you are a king, sir, as our ballet master.
But then I also think as well, like having a male teacher, that also makes a bit of a difference as well, wouldn't you say?
Completely. And like David was like this 6'3", huge built man, still the most incredible dancer. He danced around the world with I mean, he danced in Iceland. He'd been in ballet companies around the world, and all of a sudden you're doing ballet at a musical theatre college. And sometimes I feel like people say you need to do ballet because it's the core of all dance, whereas he took it as ballet is the core of all dance, but we're doing ballet that's fit for purpose in musical theatre, so you can understand how to use the skills you're learning in ballet to transfer it elsewhere, rather than just this is what you do in ballet, you know. With my great port de bras that I just displayed for everyone there. And so it finally made sense to a lot of people. Like there were lads in my year that were rugby players that did a bit of drama, singing, and had never really danced before, that was suddenly being explained to them in a way that they understood. I don't know where that point was going. I've just lost my train of thought.
Don't be silly. Yeah, I agree. And I kind of also feel like as well, having male role models, having male teachers, having a class full of males will obviously make you work harder as well, because it'll be the competitive kind of side of it that's going to be like, right, well, I was from a class of girls where maybe I stood out quite a lot, and now this is my opportunity to kind of like fight for my place in a class full of boys, maybe.
So there's, you know, like toxic masculinity coming back to bite everyone on the bum sometimes. But like it's the way that boys can lift each other up as well, in the same way that you'd go out and play a game of football and someone would score the winning goal. and the reaction to it would be amazing. You'd be in class and see a guy that for maybe months has struggled to land a double pirouette, and in that one class, he smashes it and lands it perfect, and everyone's like, "Go on, mate!" That like, yeah, you look sick then. And because I think it's that athleticism that when you suddenly realise it dance is a sport, in the same way, and we are athletes of the highest level, really. And when you bring a sporting mindset to it, as a lot of boys will, it kind of changes the game on how you perceive it. Oh, I love it. Oh, God, I'm getting all like nostalgic thinking about my first year ballet classes. Didn't think that was going to happen on a Thursday morning.
Well, going back even further, so when you were back in your dance school and you were in your high school from your hometown, was there any time that you got any sort of grief or any sort of like negativity for doing something that was maybe a little bit different to the norm, aside from your football and stuff like that? Was there any negativity that you dealt with?
I mean, there was, and I think there always will be for young boys that are starting out. I don't even necessarily think it's performing, because if a guy's picking up a guitar, he's cool. Whereas if a guy's going to a ballet class, it's like, but you know, I played sport. I was on like school sport teams and things like that. And I think I got quite lucky, because there would always be like comments or you know, negative things that would come your way. But then I think it must have been about year 9 or 10, so that would have been like 4th or 5th year in Scotland. There was like a school kind of like, not talent show, it's just like a school showcase of just like things, and I hosted it and like did some acts in it. And after that, so, like the people that when kind of maybe used to pick on me a bit suddenly became really protective of me. It was really strange, because a lot of times it's not like, oh, that there were bullies and nasty people. They were my mates that would still jibe you and still, you know, and sometimes you think, oh, it's fine, it's banter, but then other times it would kind of get you down a bit. And like we sat as 4 of us on a row in our form class, Wardy, Joe and Ryan and me on the end. And it always used to be Wardy would be rinsing me, and Twinkle Toes was my nickname. Right, what's Twinkle Toes doing? Like, if you'd fall over in a game of football or you get taken out, it's just like, oh, watch your feet, Twinkle Toes, you need them, and all of that kind of thing. But all of a sudden after that, they were really protective of me. Like, and so if anyone else ever said anything, they suddenly stuck up to me and it's like, don't say that to Twinkle Toes. Like it was a really sudden like switch that I kind of only maybe noticed now as an adult. At the time it was just kind of like, oh, that's great. And I think their attitude kind of changed when I think people want boys are childish and they grow up a little bit, but they also see that if it's something you love and it's something that you're good at and are passionate about, just because they're good at and passionate about different things to you doesn't make the thing you're doing any less valid or important. And I think that's something that kind of twigged in their brain. Yeah, he may not be playing football all the time like we are, but he's still doing something that's cool, and I enjoyed watching that. That was really good, mate. And you could see them being confused, but because the thing that they normally take the mick out of is something they just enjoyed watching.
They applaud you,
and it was nice. It's a nice kind of thing to look back on now as an adult, watching dance change people and their perceptions right in front of their eyes.
I agree. But if you were talking to a 12-year-old who is maybe dealing with this right now and they're dealing with that every day at school, is there any advice that you would maybe give them to be like, keep going, you've got this?
Don't give up. Don't stop. It's going to be hard, and there are going to be times when people say things that do upset you and get you down. And there's often the thing that people say, you know, oh, well, don't let it get to you, rise above it. It's going to get to you. Sometimes it's going to get to you, and that's all right. sometimes it takes more energy to resist that it's not bothering you, rather than just admitting, yeah, that bothered me and that got me down.
Yeah.
But all you need to know is that will pass and it will get better. Yeah. And anytime there is that frustration, or you're getting, I used to fight. It's going to sound maybe a bit narcissistic. I'm a really good tapper, but my main thing in that time as a kid, when I was frustrated or when someone got me down, I'd shove my tap shoes on and I'd go and fuck the hell out of the floor with my tap shoes and probably do proper damage to my knees and break the heels off my tap shoes. But that was kind of a solace for me, was just some kind of venting my frustration, was shoving on a pair of tap shoes. So I say that to bring it back to the point of channel it and use it, because it can be your greatest weapon.
Yeah.
Never apologize for being passionate about something you love.
Yeah.
And if someone else doesn't think it's cool, that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah.
And I think going for, like, if someone doesn't like you, that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah.
And there's as much you can say, don't let it phase you. It will, but acknowledge it and use it.
Yeah.
And don't give up. No matter what you do, don't give up. Because if you do, one day you'll look back and regret it.
I agree. And I also feel like a lot of that toughening up and making your skin really thick actually does then help in the career, because you're always getting knocked back from auditions and not being tall enough, not being good enough, not being this enough. So it kind of does help you in the long term as well, dealing with some of this negativity at a young age. I
completely, like, we spend our lives being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it can be damaging for people, because social media is such a thing where people portray such what am I trying to say? They don't put their real life on social media.
Yeah.
And so we are often taught to put on a brave face, put on a filter, the same you're doing, and I feel great about it. Yeah. Whereas it's something I had to do a lot of work on initially, was when you get, again, cut from an audition, or you could get right down to a final and then don't get the job,
mm-hmm.
is you're allowed to be gutted about that.
Yeah.
You're allowed to go, oh, I wanted that. I really wanted that. You can't wallow in self-pity about it, but kind of what I said before, acknowledging an emotion or a feeling and just letting it be there and letting it pass is often far less draining than fighting it and pushing back against it. Because we are rejected every single day. We spend our lives putting ourselves out there to be judged and rejected. Even when you're in a job, you're in front of an audience. Every single day, you're putting yourself out there on a stage, asking for acceptance from them. So it's tough. And the lessons you learn once you're younger definitely go through to when you're older. They really do.
Yeah, it'll help you. And it's also like ammo to make you work harder as well, I think, at the end of the day as well. Now, one question I was going to ask is, when you got into your performing life, so after you'd finished your graduated and you were in your performing life, what did you notice about the other males who were successful, who'd got these other roles that you were working with? What would you say is how they've managed to get there? What's making them stand out as a male performer?
You know, that's a really interesting question. So I found myself in a situation. I did a job in Toronto in Canada, and it was the stage version of Titanic the Musical. I know, a great idea. It thinks at the end they all die.
Spoiler.
And I would have been about 22 at the time, and it was. So I vividly remember it was the first time I've ever seen my name listed on outside a theatre saying the cast includes, and my name being there. And my name was also there with loads of people that I'd seen in shows as a student that I looked up to and admired and thought, oh, I want to be like them. And all of a sudden I was in a show with them.
Equal, yeah.
And they're still really good mates to this day. And I've told a few of them saying, you know, I saw you when you were in that show. I saw you in that show, and I thought you were amazing. And one thing that they all had was humility.
Okay, yeah.
they were just nice people that turned up, worked hard, and didn't take anything too seriously.
Yeah.
And that's something that I kind of think I always had, but definitely working with people like that. People like, for me, it was like Nadim Narman, Scott Garnham, James Hume, Greg Castiglione. I don't know if anyone will know any of those names, but they mean a lot to me. Is that not taking anything too seriously, but working hard. And I think sometimes I was a bit of an overworker, or I would let it all completely consume me and take over my life and take over everything that I did. Whereas being able to leave that stage door or leave that studio or leave that class and go, great, that happened in there. Now I'm going to the pub, or now I'm going to turn a PlayStation on, or now I'm, going to the gym, or doing whatever you do to unwind. I think that's important as well. Having something else you care about that is away from any kind of performing or classwork or teaching, something that's completely unrelated, to allow you time away from it. Because if not, it can become all consuming, and that's when I think it could start to mess with someone's head. Like mine's baseball. I love baseball. Like I will watch it for hours. And I love sport, all sport really. I love. But have something else is something else, I'd say. Going back to a previous question, I don't know if that really answered the question you asked, but it kind of came back to the other one.
It works. It all works. Now, one thing I like to ask is, if you could go back to being a child, is there anything you maybe would have changed, like maybe started gymnastics or maybe stretched more? Or is there anything you maybe think, I wish I'd started that at a younger age?
Definitely. You've already said it, stretching.
Stretching,
yeah. I wished I stretched more when my body had the capability to stretch.
Yeah.
Because now, there's a certain amount you can do now to keep yourself in check, but you get older, things contract and things start to hurt more. But stretching is something I never really did. I thought I'd never really use it. Now, girls need to be nice and limber, but boys need to be strong. No, boys need to be well limbered and strong.
Yeah.
And if I'd have just listened to people that were trying to help me be better, I would be able to get my legs up here rather than down here.
I know. And do you know what?
Stretch, boys, stretch. Always stretch. Do press ups and stretch.
The thing is, I did a lot of gymnastics when I was younger, and then it got to that age when I was 13, 14 and I gave up, and it's like, why? Like, if you could just, with hindsight, go back and be like, why did you stop? Or why did you not do this? But you can't live with regrets, and I think you wouldn't have the career that we would have if we had done these things. So yeah, it's always good to try and tell yourself that as well. And one thing
maybe I would have been able to do cats if that would be...
You could have been in that amazing film as well.
I've still not seen it. Not seen it. I might watch it with my mum at some point. Is it worth it?
No.
Moving on. Good.
Dancing is wonderful, though. If you were not doing performing, and performing had not been a part of your life, where do you think you would be now?
That is a really hard question that I don't ever have an answer for. My backup, I think, if I didn't get into drama school, I wanted to look at maybe doing like music technology, to go into like sound and recording. The other thing is that I'm massively into history. I was a big history nerd. I maybe would have gone to study Russian history at university. But what I would have been doing as a job, I don't know.
No idea.
I think that's the thing. Maybe if you get to a certain age, and it was something that an old school director told me, probably when I was about 17, was about, if you can imagine yourself doing something else, go and do that.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard to stick this out if you can imagine yourself doing something else. And I kind of gave it a lot of thought, thinking, well, I actually can't really see myself doing anything else that I'm going to enjoy and is going to make me happy. So I'll stick it out until, if the day does come where something else will make me more happy than being an actor, then great. But until that day, I'll stick it out, and I'm still here now, 14 years later. So,
and see, if you'd done that history essay, you might have been studying your your history?
I might have been living in Russia studying Putin right now. Who knows? Instead of in my mum's spare room talking to you.
How things come around, isn't it? All things happen for a reason. But I agree. And also, once this is all over, you're going to go back to performing, you're going to be touring again. And this is just kind of the middle of your career. You're not even, you've only been doing this since you graduated, so you've got a long time to go still. So
here's hoping.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Hopefully, even by this one conversation, we inspire someone to keep going and someone to keep following their dreams. And it just shows that with hard work, you can achieve things. And if you skive history, things happen.
You can do it. Don't quit.
Exactly.
Don't quit.
Don't quit and keep stretching. That's what you're telling me.
And do press-ups.
And do press-ups. Exactly.
And be nice.
Get a long list. People are going to be taking notes. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on. And when you're ever in Edinburgh, come and visit us as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure. Thank you so much, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
See you later.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch Simon Talks Dance today with Alex. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to his story about his career in the dance industry. Now, if there's anything you would like to see from future episodes of this, please let me know. And if you've got any feedback, I would love to hear it. Make sure you're following us on our YouTube, our Instagram, and also on our Facebook page. Thanks once again, and we'll see you for the next one.